What happened next, Jasmine would replay in her mind 1,000 times, trying to understand her own action, trying to figure out where she went wrong. Mr. Riley leaned in and kissed her, and after a brief terrible moment, Jasmine then pushed him away, not because she wanted it, not because she had feelings for him, but because in that moment she was 22 again, grieving and lonely and desperate to feel wanted. In that moment, all the defenses she had built over the years crumbled, and she was that broken girl in the diner who believed that being wanted was the same as being loved. The kiss lasted maybe 5 seconds before Jasmine came back to herself, before the horror of what was happening crushed over her, and she shuffled him away hard enough that he stumbled back. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and ran for the door, but Mr. Riley's voice stopped her. He didn't yell, didn't chase her, just said calmly that she could run if she wanted, but they both knew this wasn't over. He said he could tell Daniel about their history anytime, could tell his wife, could destroy everything Jasmine had built, or he suggested they could keep each other's secret. They could have what they both wanted without anyone getting hurt. All she had to do was come back, sit down, talk to him like an adult. Jasmine should have left, should have run straight to Daniel, confessed everything, dealt with the consequences like an adult, but fear paralyzed her. The same fear that had kept her silent for months, that had allowed Mr. Riley to manipulate her, that had put her in this position in the first place. She was terrified of losing Daniel, terrified of his family finding out about her past, terrified of being that broken girl again that everyone pitied and no one respected. So she turned around, walked back into that living room, sat down on that couch, and in doing so she made the biggest mistake of her life. What started that night as one terrible decision snowballed into a secret affair that Jasmine never wanted but didn't know how to stop. Mr. Riley was a master manipulator, always knowing exactly what to say, what button to push, how to make her feel like she was the one in control. Even as he pulled all the strings, he would test her during the day, innocent messages on the surface that anyone could read, but Jasmine understood the real meaning. He would find reason for them to be alone, always with plausible deniability, always in ways that wouldn't raise suspicion. The affair became a nightmare Jasmine couldn't wake up from. Every time she was with Mr. Riley, she felt disgusted with herself, hollow, like she was watching someone else live her life, but she didn't know how to stop it without losing everything. She loved Daniel, she loved the life they were building, and she was terrified that if the truth came out, she would lose it all, that Daniel would never forgive her, that everyone would blame her, that she would be alone again like she was at 22. So she kept the secret, kept showing up to family dinners with a smile on her face, kept lying to the man she loved, kept betraying herself a little more every day. The guilt ate at her constantly. She stopped eating properly, lost weight, couldn't sleep more than a few hours at a time. Daniel noticed the changes, asked if she was okay, if something was wrong at work, if there was anything he could do to help, and every time he asked with genuine concern in his eyes, Jasmine felt another piece of herself break. She wanted to tell him. The words were right there, trapped behind her teeth, begging to be set free, but the fear was stronger, the shame was stronger, so she lied, told him she was just stressed, just tired, just adjusting to married life, and he believed her because he loved her, because he had no reason not to trust her. 3 months into the affair, Jasmine started looking for ways out. She suggested to Daniel that maybe they should move to a different city, that she had seen some good job opportunities elsewhere. He asked why, said he loved living close to his family, that his father was getting older and he wanted to be nearby. Jasmine tried to create distance, started making excuses to miss family dinners, but Daniel would get concerned, would worry that she didn't like his family, would try harder to include her. Every escape route she tried seemed to close before she could take it, and Mr. Riley, sensing her desperation, tightening his grip, he reminded her constantly of what was at stake, of how much she had to lose, of how much power he held over her life. That night, Daniel noticed she was upset. He asked repeatedly what was wrong. She seemed distant, scared even, And for the first time, Jasmine almost told him everything. She opened her mouth, the words right there, ready to finally set her free from this nightmare. But Mr. Riley's voice echoed in her head, his threat, his manipulation, and the words died in her throat. She told Daniel she was just tired, just had a long week at work. He held her, told her he loved her, promised that things would get easier. And Jasmine cried into his shoulder, mourning the life they should have had, the trust she had destroyed, the future she had ruined. The following week, Daniel started acting strange. He would look at his phone with a troubled expression, would be quiet during dinner, would space out in middle of conversation. Jasmine asked him what was wrong, but he would just say it was work stress, nothing to worry about. But Jasmine could see in his eyes something had changed. He started coming home late, saying he had extra meetings. He stopped being as affectionate, stopped initiating conversation about their future, stopped looking at her with that adoring expression she had grown accustomed to. Jasmine's paranoia grew. She wondered if he knew, if Mr. Riley had told him, if her worst nightmare was finally coming true. One evening, about 5 months into the affair, Jasmine came home from work to find Daniel sitting in the living room in the dark. His laptop was open on the coffee table, and his face was illuminated by the screen's glow. He looked up when she entered, and his expression stopped her in her tracks. It wasn't anger, it was worse. It was devastation, pure, unfiltered devastation. He asked her to sit down. His voice sounded like he had been crying. Jasmine's entire body went numb. This was it. This was the moment everything fell apart. She sat down slowly, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Daniel turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a security camera footage from his parents' house, footage of the living room, footage from the first night when Jasmine had waited for Daniel's mother to return, when Mr. Riley had kissed her, when she had made the choice to stay instead of run. Daniel's father had security camera. Jasmine hadn't known. Mr. Riley probably hadn't known either, or maybe he had and didn't care, confident that no one would ever check, but someone had. Daniel had. He explained in a broken voice that his mother had mentioned misplacing some jewelry a few weeks back, nothing serious, but she asked him to check the security footage to see if she could figure out where she left it, and while reviewing the footage, he found this, his wife and his father, in a moment that should never had happened. The silence that followed was deafening. Jasmine tried to speak, tried to explain, but what could she possibly say? How could she make him understand without making it worse? Daniel didn't yell, didn't scream. He just sat there, looking at her like he was seeing a stranger, like the woman he had married has been replaced by someone else he didn't recognize. He asked her, his voice barely above a whisper, how long had it been going on? Jasmine wanted to lie, wanted to minimize it, but she owed him at least one truth. So she told him, 5 months, 5 months of lies, 5 months of betrayal, of destroying their marriage from the inside. Daniel put his hand in his head and broke down in tears. Jasmine could only watch, could only sit there with the weight of what she had done crushing her chest. Then Daniel asked the question Jasmine had been dreading. How did it start? Why would you do this with my father? And Jasmine, realizing there was no more secret left to protect, told him everything about meeting Mr. Riley years ago, about their relationship when she was 22, about the heartbreak and the attempt to start over, about walking into that living room on the day they met his parents and seeing her past standing in front of her, about the manipulations, the threats, the fear that had paralyzed her into making terrible choices. She told him about feeling trapped, about wanting to tell him but being too afraid, about hating herself more with each day passing. Daniel listened in absolute silence, his face going through a range of emotion as each new revelation hit him. When she finished, he stood up without a word and walked out of the apartment. Jasmine didn't try to stop him. What could she say? What could she possibly do to fix this? She sat alone in the dark living room, the same room where they had talked about baby names and vacation plans and growing old together, and felt her entire world collapse. Hours later, her phone rang. It was Daniel's mother, asking what had happened. saying that Daniel had shown up at their house and confronted his father, that they had been screaming an accusation, that Daniel had told them everything, every detail of affair and history that preceded. The confrontation at the Riley house that night was catastrophic. Daniel had stormed in, showing his mother the security footage, telling her about Jasmine and his father's past relationship, exposing every lie that had been carefully constructed over the past months. Mrs. Riley, who had welcomed Jasmine into their family with open arms, who had treated her like the daughter she never had, looked at the footage in absolute disbelief. She confronted her husband right there in the living room, demanding to know if it was true, if he had been having an affair with their son's wife, if he had known Jasmine before, if their entire family had been built on lies. Mr. Riley tried to deny it at first, claimed the footage was taken out of context, that Jasmine had come onto him, that he was the victim of a manipulative younger woman who had targeted him and his son. But Daniel wasn't having it. He told his mother about finding other evidence, phone records, messages, meeting times that lined up too perfectly to be coincidental. Mr. Riley's careful facade finally cracked. The manipulator who had controlled both Jasmine and the narrative for so long found himself cornered with no way out. He fell back on his final defense. He blamed Jasmine for everything, said she seduced him years ago when she was vulnerable, that she had orchestrated this entire situation to get close to his family, that she was mentally unstable and had trapped both him and his son. Mrs. Riley's scream apparently echoed through the entire house. She threw her wedding ring at her husband and told him to get out, that she never wanted to see him again, that he had destroyed everything good in their family, the family that had seemed so perfect, so put together, so happy, shattered into pieces in a single night, all because of secrets that should have been told, choices that should have been different, manipulation that should have been recognized and stopped. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and consequences. Daniel moved out of their apartment and back with his mother, who was now living alone after throwing Mr. Riley out. He told Jasmine he needed time to think, to process, to figure out if there was ways to salvage what they had. But his eyes told a different story. The love that had once shone there so brightly had been replaced by something that looks like grief, like he was mourning the loss of the person he thought she was. Jasmine understood. She was mourning that person too. She started seeing a therapist, finally admitting to someone the full truth of what had happened, of how she had been manipulated, of the choices she had made, despite knowing they were wrong. Mr. Riley moved into a rental apartment across town. He tried to contact Jasmine multiple times, still trying to manipulate her, still trying to control the narrative, but she blocked him on everything, refused to engage, finally found the strength to cut him out completely. His attempts to paint himself as the victim fell flat as more truth came out. Daniel's mother found evidence that this wasn't the first time Mr. Riley had pursued someone inappropriately, that there had been other women over the years. The man who had seemed so charming, so caring, so trustworthy, was revealed to be a serial manipulator who preyed on vulnerable women. Daniel filed for divorce 3 months after the truth came out. The paper arrived at Jasmine's apartment on Tuesday morning, and she signed them without protest. She had lost the right to fight for him the moment she made the choice to go back into that living room, to sit back down on that couch, to prioritize her fear over her integrity. She read through the legal language that ended their marriage, and all she could think about was their wedding day, how hopeful she had been, how certain that she had finally found her happy ending. The irony was almost too much to bear. She had spent her 20s running from the pain Mr. Riley caused her, had spent years building walls to protect herself, and in the end those walls had just trapped her in a prison of her own making. The Riley family completely fell apart. Daniel barely spoke to either of his parents, couldn't forgive his father for the betrayal, and couldn't fully forgive his mother for years of enabling his father's behavior, for looking the other way at signs that something was wrong. Mrs. Riley filed for divorce as well, splitting assets and ending a 30-year marriage that had been rotten from the inside that no one realized. The house that had once been filled with laughter and warmth sat mostly empty, a monument to everything that had been lost. Jasmine's life changed in ways she never anticipated. The other nurse at the hospital found out about the scandal, not through Jasmine but through social media and local gossip. Small town don't keep secret for long, and the story of a woman having an affair with her father-in-law was too salacious for people not to share. Jasmine endured whisper in hallways, judgmental looks from co-workers, patient's family requesting different nurse because they have heard about her moral character. She thought about moving again, starting over in yet another city where no one knew her story, but she was tired of running, tired of letting shame dictate her choices, so she stayed, went to work every day, held her head up even when she wanted to hide. Through therapy, Jasmine began to understand the dynamics that had led to her choices. Her therapist helped her to see that while she was responsible for her action, she had also been the victim of a predatory man who exploited her vulnerability not once but twice. At 22, she had been grieving, isolated and desperate for connection, the perfect target for someone like Mr. Riley. And as an adult, that same man has used her fear, her shame, and her love for his son to manipulate her into an affair she never wanted. Understanding this didn't erase what she had done, didn't excuse the lies she had told or the trust she had broken, but it helped her begin the process of forgiving herself, of recognizing that she was more than the worst thing she had ever done. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Jasmine ran into Daniel at a coffee shop. It was awkward at first. Both of them froze in place, neither sure what to say, but Daniel surprised her by asking if they could talk for just a few minutes. They sat down at a corner table, two people who had once promised to spend their lives together, now feeling like strangers. Daniel told her he was in therapy too, working through his anger, his grief, his shattered trust. He said he hadn't hated her, even though part of him wished he could. Hate would have been easier than the complicated mess of emotion he actually felt. He said he understood, at least intellectually, how his father had manipulated her, how the power dynamics had been skewed from the beginning, but understanding didn't heal the betrayer, didn't erase the fact that she had lied to him for months, had let him believe in marriage that was already broken. Jasmine asked if he thought there was any chance of them in the future, if maybe with enough time and healing, they could find their way back to each other. Daniel looked at her with sad eyes and shook his head. He said some things once broken couldn't be fixed, that too much damage had been done, too much trust destroyed. He said he hoped she found happiness, hoped she healed from whatever pain had driven her to make the choices she made, but he couldn't be part of her life anymore. Seeing her even now in this neutral coffee shop brought back too much hurt. They said goodbye one final time, and Jasmine watched him walk out of the coffee shop, out of her life, taking with him the last remnant of the future they should have. Mr. Riley tried multiple times to reach out to Jasmine over the following years. Emails, letters, phone calls from new numbers she didn't recognize. Each message carried the same themes: how they belonged together, how they should have ended up together from the beginning, how his son was just an unfortunate obstacle, how they could still make it work if she would just talk to him. The message revealed a man who had learned nothing, felt no genuine remorse, and still saw Jasmine as a possession to be claimed rather than a person who deserved respect and autonomy. Jasmine forwarded every message to her lawyer and eventually got a restraining order. The last she heard, Mr. Riley was in a relationship with a woman even younger than Jasmine, repeating the same pattern, finding a new victim to manipulate. 2 years after everything fell apart, Jasmine moved to a different state, not because she was running this time, but because she wanted a fresh start on her own terms. She had done the work in therapy, had faced her demon, had learned to recognize manipulation and power imbalance, had forgiven herself while still holding herself accountable. She kept her job in nursing, finding purpose in helping others during their most vulnerable moments, perhaps as a way of atoning for her own failure. During her most vulnerable times, she was cautious about dating, taking things slowly, making sure she was choosing partners for the right reasons and not just because she was lonely or scared of being alone. On difficult days, Jasmine still thought about Daniel, about the life they could have had if she had made different choices, if she had told him the truth the very first day when she saw his father standing in that living room, if she had trusted that his love for her was stronger than his father's manipulation, if she had valued herself enough to believe she deserved honesty and dignity even when facing hard consequences. The regret was something she learned to carry, not as a punishment, but as a reminder of the person she never wanted to be again. Some scars don't fade, some mistakes leave permanent marks, but Jasmine learns that being marked by your past doesn't mean you're defined by it, that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and that redemption is a daily practice rather than a destination. The last time Jasmine heard about the Riley family came through a mutual acquaintance. Daniel had moved across the country, was dating someone new, seemed to be building a life that didn't include the toxic pattern of his family. His mother had found her own healing through therapy and community, had reconnected with friends she had lost over the years while being Mrs. Riley, had started volunteering and finding purpose aside of being someone's wife and mother. Mr. Riley was exactly where anyone who really knew him would expect, still manipulating, still hurting people, still refusing to take responsibility for the trail of damage he left behind. Some people change, some people don't. The difference is in whether they are willing to look honestly at themselves and do the hard work of becoming better. What would you have done in Jasmine's position when she first saw Mr. Riley standing in that living room? Should she have told Daniel immediately, even knowing it might end their relationship before it truly began? When Mr. Riley started manipulating her, threatening to expose their past, should she have called his bluff and told the truth herself? Was she a victim of manipulation, or was she responsible for her own choices? Or is the answer somehow both? Let's talk in the comments. And if you want more real life stories that expose hidden family truths, subscribe and turn on the notifications. This story reminds us that the biggest betrayal often comes from people we trust most, that some secrets don't stay buried, they just wait until they can destroy everything, and that the choices we make in our weakest moments can echo through years of our lives, affecting not just ourselves, but everyone who loves us. Jasmine's story isn't just about an affair, it's about power, manipulation, vulnerability, and the devastating cost of silence. It's about how predators operate, how they groom and manipulate and exploit, how they target people at their lowest point and then blame them for being vulnerable. And it's about how one person's refusal to take responsibility for their action can destroy multiple lives, can shatter family, can leave scars that last for generations.